March 18, 1956, 11:47 p.m. The kitchen of Rao's restaurant, East Harlem. Antonio Russo stands frozen, his white chef's coat soaked with sweat that has nothing to do with the heat from the ovens behind him. His hands tremble as he watches his plate sitting on the stainless steel counter. Chicken scarpariello, garlic, white wine, vinegar, peppers, and 3 grams of arsenic trioxide dissolved in the pan sauce, enough to kill a horse, enough to kill the most dangerous man in Harlem. The door swings open, heavy footsteps echo on tile. Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson walks into that kitchen. He doesn't say a word, he just smiles. Antonio's blood turns to ice. Because Bumpy knows. To understand what happened in that kitchen, you need to understand who Bumpy Johnson was in 1956 and why the Italian mob wanted him dead. By the mid-1950s, Bumpy Johnson controlled Harlem. Not just the numbers rackets, not just the heroin trade, he controlled the streets. From 110th Street to 155th, his word was law. He'd survived 2 prison terms, dozens of assassination attempts, and had walked out of Alcatraz in 1963 with his reputation only stronger. But in 1956, he was at the height of his power, and that made him a problem. The Italian Mafia, specifically the Genovese crime family, wanted Harlem. The black policy operations pulled in $50 million a year. That's over $500 million in today's money. And Bumpy Johnson stood in their way. Not with diplomacy, not with compromise, with violence. They'd tried bullets, 5 different contract killings. Bumpy survived them all, so they tried something quieter, something a 50-year-old man might not see coming. Poison. The plan was simple. Antonio Russo, a chef at Rao's, a restaurant where both black and Italian gangsters ate in uneasy peace, had gambling debts. $8,000 to a Genovese loan shark. That's 2 years' salary. They gave him a choice. Put the poison in Bumpy's food or they'd kill his wife and daughter. Antonio chose his family. He didn't know Bumpy Johnson had eyes everywhere. March 18, 1956, 9:15 p.m. Bumpy Johnson receives a phone call at his apartment on Lenox Avenue. The voice on the other end belongs to Jerome Miller, a dishwasher at Rao's. Jerome is on Bumpy's payroll. $40 a week to keep his ears open. "Mr. Johnson," Jerome whispers into the phone, his voice shaking. "They got to Antonio, the chef. I heard 2 guys in the alley behind the kitchen. They gave him something, a vial. Told him to put it in your food tonight." Bumpy doesn't raise his voice. He never does. What they look like. Genovese guys. I recognized one, Sal Bertucci, enforcer. Bumpy hangs up. Now most men would cancel the reservation. Stay home. Send someone to deal with Antonio Russo. But Bumpy Johnson isn't most men. He built his reputation on one principle. Nobody disrespects him and lives to tell about it. He has 3 hours before his 10:30 reservation. Bumpy makes 4 calls. The first is to Dr. Marcus Webb, a physician who patches up gunshot wounds without asking questions. "I need ipecac syrup and activated charcoal. Bring it to Rao's back entrance, 10:15. The second call is to Raymond Lucas, his most trusted bodyguard. "Bring 3 men, Rao's, 10 o'clock. Nobody comes in or out once I'm inside." The third call is to his wife, Mame. "I won't be home until late, don't wait up." The fourth call. He calls Rao's and confirms his reservation, 10:28 p.m. Bumpy Johnson walks through the front door of Rao's. The restaurant goes silent. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Forks freeze halfway to mouths. Everyone knows who he is. The sharp suit, navy blue, hand-tailored. The fedora tipped just so. The bump on the back of his head that gave him his name, barely visible beneath the hat's brim. Antonio Russo, watching from the kitchen window, feels his stomach drop. Bumpy sits at his usual table, corner booth, back to the wall, eyes on both doors. Raymond Lucas and two other men take positions near the entrance and the kitchen door. One man stays outside. The maitre d', a nervous Italian named Vincenzo, approaches with a menu. Bumpy waves it away. "Tell Antonio I want his special, the chicken scarpariello. Tell him to make it exactly how he was told to make it." Vincenzo's face goes white. He nods and disappears into the kitchen. In the kitchen, Antonio Russo stares at the order ticket. His hands won't stop shaking. The vial of arsenic trioxide sits in his pocket, clear liquid, odorless, tasteless. The Genovese men told him exactly how much to use. 3 full droppers in the sauce. He won't taste it. He'll be dead in 6 hours. Antonio looks at the vial, then at the pot of simmering white wine sauce on the stove. He thinks about his wife, Maria, his daughter, Sophia, only 7 years old. He empties the vial into the sauce. His hands are shaking so badly he almost drops the pan. He finishes the dish, chicken, peppers, garlic, the poisoned sauce ladled over the top, and places it on the counter. "Order up," he whispers. Vincenzo carries the plate out. 10:47 p.m. The plate sits in front of Bumpy Johnson. Steam rises from the chicken. The sauce glistens under the restaurant's warm lighting. It looks perfect. Bumpy doesn't touch it. He leans back in his chair, pulls out a cigarette and lights it. He takes a long drag, never taking his eyes off the kitchen door. Then he speaks. His voice carries across the silent restaurant. "Tell Antonio to come out here." Everyone freezes. Vincenzo stammers. "Mr. Johnson, he's in the middle of now." Raymond Lucas takes a step toward the kitchen. That's all it takes. 30 seconds later, Antonio Russo emerges, still wearing his chef's coat, his face the color of old ash. Bumpy gestures to the chair across from him. "Sit down, Antonio." Antonio sits. He can't look Bumpy in the eyes. "You cooked this for me?" Bumpy asks. His voice is calm, almost friendly. "Yes, Mr. Johnson. Your specialty, right? You're famous for this dish." "Yes, sir." Bumpy nods slowly. He picks up his fork. The entire restaurant holds its breath. "Then you won't mind watching me eat it." Antonio's eyes go wide. Bumpy Johnson takes the first bite. He chews slowly, swallows, never breaks eye contact with Antonio Russo. Antonio can't breathe. He knows what's in that sauce. He knows what arsenic does: organ failure, convulsions, agonizing death. And he's watching Bumpy Johnson eat it like it's a Sunday dinner. Bumpy takes another bite, and another. "This is good, Antonio," Bumpy says. "Really good, best chicken I've had in months." Antonio's face is covered in sweat now. His whole body trembles. "Mr. Johnson, please, please what?" Bumpy's voice drops 20 degrees. The friendliness vanishes. "Please stop eating. Why would I do that? This is delicious." Bumpy eats a third of the chicken, the sauce, the peppers. He even tears off a piece of bread and soaks up what's left on the plate. The whole time he stares at Antonio like a cat watching a mouse in a trap. Finally, Bumpy sets down his fork. He wipes his mouth with a napkin. Pause. "You know what's in this, don't you, Antonio?" Antonio breaks. Tears stream down his face. "They have my family, Mr. Johnson. They said they'd kill my wife and daughter if I didn't." "Who?" "Genovese. Sal Bertucci and another guy. They gave me the poison. They said you wouldn't taste it. They said I'd be dead by morning." Bumpy finishes the sentence. He nods slowly. "How much did you put in?" 3 droppers, maybe 4 grams. The room is dead silent. 4 grams of arsenic trioxide. A lethal dose is 1 gram. Bumpy stands up. Antonio flinches, expecting a bullet, but Bumpy doesn't reach for a gun. He walks past Antonio to the kitchen door and pushes it open. "Raymond, bring the doctor in." "Back door." 60 seconds later, Dr. Marcus Webb enters through the kitchen, carrying a medical bag. Bumpy leads him to the bathroom. 5 minutes later, Bumpy emerges, his face pale but composed. Dr. Webb follows, holding an empty bottle of ipecac syrup. Bumpy walks back to the table where Antonio sits frozen in terror. "You're going to do exactly what I tell you," Bumpy says quietly. "Tomorrow morning you're going to call Sal Bertucci. You're going to tell him I ate the chicken. Tell him I looked fine when I left. He'll be expecting me to drop dead in a few hours. When I don't, he's going to come looking for you. When he does, you're going to tell him you put the poison in. You're going to tell him you watched me eat it. And you're going to tell him I walked out of here alive." Antonio stares at him, confused. But he'll kill me." Bumpy leans down, his face inches from Antonio's. "No, he won't. Because I'm going to have someone watching your house 24 hours a day, your wife, your daughter. Nobody touches them. And nobody touches you as long as you do exactly what I just said." "Why?" Antonio whispers. "Why not just kill me now?" Bumpy straightens his suit jacket. "Because I want Sal Bertucci to know what happened here tonight. I want him to go back to Vito Genovese and explain how he gave a chef enough poison to kill 3 men, and I ate it and walked out. I want them to understand something." He leans down one more time, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carries across the entire restaurant. "I'm not afraid of them, and I can't be killed." March 19, 1956, 7 a.m. Antonio Russo makes the phone call. His voice shakes as he tells Sal Bertucci that Bumpy Johnson ate the poisoned chicken and left the restaurant. Bertucci is jubilant. Until noon, when word spreads through Harlem that Bumpy is not only alive, but conducting business as usual from his headquarters on Lenox Avenue. Bertucci goes to Rouse that afternoon. He finds Antonio in the kitchen, alive and unharmed. When he demands to know what happened, Antonio tells him the truth. Bumpy knew. Bumpy ate it anyway, and Bumpy walked out alive. Sal Bertucci never reports back to Vito Genovese. His body is found 3 days later in the Bronx, 2 bullets in the back of his head. The message was clear. As for Antonio Russo, he kept cooking at Rouse for another 15 years. True to his word, Bumpy Johnson had men watching Antonio's family. Nobody ever touched them. Antonio never spoke about that night again, except once, years later, to a reporter researching Bumpy's life. "He could have killed me," Antonio said. "He should have killed me, but he didn't. He wanted to prove something bigger than revenge. He wanted to prove he was untouchable, and that night he did." The story spread through Harlem like wildfire. Within a week, every gangster, cop, and street hustler knew. Someone tried to poison Bumpy Johnson. He knew about it, ate it anyway, and made the chef watch. It became legend, not because Bumpy survived, he'd survived before, but because of how he survived. With intelligence, with courage, and with a message that echoed through every mob family from Harlem to Brooklyn: you can't kill what refuses to die. Bumpy Johnson would survive 12 more years, dying not from a bullet or poison, but from a heart attack in 1968 at Wells Restaurant in Harlem. Chicken and grits in front of him, just like that night at Rouse. He was 62 years old. By then he'd become more than a gangster. He was a symbol, a man who looked death in the face and smiled. The Godfather of Harlem, untouchable, unbreakable, unforgettable. If this story moved you, if you understand now why Bumpy Johnson's legend lives on, hit that subscribe button. Share this story. Because these aren't just tales of criminals. They're stories of power, of resistance, of men and women who refuse to bow. Next time, we're diving into the night Frank Lucas walked into Bumpy's funeral with $100,000 in cash, and what he did that made every mobster in that room bow down. You don't want to miss it.